everyone. So in this video, we are going to talk about, let me fix my light. Okay, so we're going to talk about how you can figure out whether or not your body is in proportion, okay? So you could think of it as 8 heads, right? So, or like 8 thumbs worth. Okay, so on this piece of paper, I have 8 sections, all right, about the length of my thumbprint. Okay, so the body would be split up into 8 heads. So what I mean by that is, here, let me go ahead. I'm going to make this darker so you guys can see it better. Hold the phone. Okay, so I did it with pen so you guys could see better. So what I mean by 8 heads is this first area at the top would be how big the head is. Okay, and then the rest of these are the same size going down. Okay, 8 heads, like a giant cactus. Here, I'll give them smileys. So we know they're heads. Okay. So, right over here, basically the breakdown is, this is the head, right? So we have our head, and then down to this line right here is the chest. Okay, so we would have our chest. So maybe if you want to, do the shoulders like we talked about with that line that goes across, and then add in the neck. So this is going to be the chest. All right, so, or like the pecs, right? When you see one of those like muscly men, that would be right where their like muscles are. And then down here would be like the abs, right? So they're pecs. Okay, and that would be like the rib cage. That's a better way to describe it. Okay, so this upper part right here is the rib cage. Now, once you have that, the waist keeps going down to this line right here. Remember, that has a pivot as well. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer. Okay. So this line right here, this would be like where the belly button goes. This would also be where the elbows are. Okay. Then going down to the next one is our hips. Right, we talked about our hips, and you can have an angle in the middle, like a triangle, right? Because we have like almost like he's wearing some underwear. I'll do this darker so you can see it better. So that line would be right down here would be where the legs would start, right? And where, the underwear would come down to. And then right here on the sides, that would be where the wrists go. All right, down to this next line, this is where the fingertips would go. Okay, so here, let me add these in so that you can see these arms a little bit better, just kind of roughly. So this would be where the fingertips go, where those would end. Okay. Remember, right in here, there are pivot points for the legs. So the legs would come down. And this would be like mid-thigh. It wouldn't be down until this one right here, where we would have the bottom of like the kneecaps. So actually I should do that right above. Right, so we'd have our knees right there. Then we would skip a line again, and this bottom line would be where the feet end. Right, so like the ankles would be about halfway between those, and then you'd have your feet and your calves, like so. Okay, so let me bring this back a little bit, and I'm going to draw the outline of that in pen so you can see even better, okay? Okay, so now you can see this better, right? So my figure, the length of it is 8 heads. Okay, the important ones are, the top of the head, the bottom of the head, this one in the middle for the waist, this one right here for the pelvis, this one right here for the knees, and then right down in here for the feet. And then if we cut that one in half, those are the ankles. Okay, so those are the big ones, right? And you can see that this upper part, the 1, 2, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 heads in the top half of the body, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 heads in the bottom half of the body. Okay, so the top half and the bottom half are the same length. Okay, so if you're drawing a figure and you're like, I don't know, this looks kind of weird, you can always measure it that way, if that makes sense. Okay, so that takes our figures that we talked about before in different poses, and then you can scale them to see if they're the right length. I'm going to move this right over here so you can see it. Actually, I'll move it down just a little bit. Okay. And then what we're going to do is on this one, I'll show you how to draw the lines with a ruler. Okay, this is just 1 inch per. So on a regular piece of paper, an inch is best. Okay. So I'm going to draw it with a pencil this time. And I'm going to hope that it's dark enough for you guys to see. So let's see. I'm going to start my person right up here. If I can hold this still enough. Wish me luck. Okay. So I like to have it be about halfway down the page. This is a half. That's not half, right? This is about half. So I do a line going down. Ooh, if I can hold it. And I make little marks at each one. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you can see those. Okay. And then you can take a ruler that you use to measure them with, and you can go across and make your lines. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause this and draw these lines, because once you have your little marks, it's just drawing lines going across. All right. And I seem to be struggling with holding this and the ruler and drawing at the same time. Okay, so I have my lines drawn. There's 9 lines and 8 spaces. Okay, so what I like to do, and I do this in pencil, but you can do yours with pen, is I like to figure out that halfway point. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this right here would be my halfway point. Right, and that halfway point is the bottom of the pelvis, or like where the undies would go, and this top part would be like the head and the torso and all of that stuff. And then down here, this would be where the feet would end. This would be where the head starts. Okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my pencil. I like to start with a circle and then add in the scalp. Okay, so we have that circle for the skull. And then again, I like to add in the jaw. It kind of has like a V and comes up. I'm actually going to make mine a little bit bigger. I always to go a little bigger than not big enough. Okay. Let me erase my extra lines so you guys can see what I have. Okay. I made my head go up just a little bit higher, just because I felt like it. Alright, so if you were to take this next part and find about halfway between, that would be where the shoulders are going to go, right? And if you watched the previous video, we learned that our shoulders can angle a little bit differently. right? So maybe I want this one to be in a pose. Okay, down here, this is the waist, right? So maybe I want to have my waist just a little bit tilted. We have our neck. If you want, you can draw that line that comes down. That would be like the spine. But our neck comes down and curves out. We would have our shoulders, right? And then if it helps too, the width of like a man's chest would be a head this way and a head that way, right? So like two heads. A woman's would be just a little bit shorter. It would be, let's see, they would overlap, so maybe like one head. All right, so if you're trying to figure out how wide to make their shoulders, so this time I'm going to do a woman. Okay, I'm going to erase those extra lines so I don't confuse you too much. All right, we have those pivots, right? My circles, those are the shoulders. But before I do that part, I'm going to go in and I'm going to find that chest, my line for my chest, and then it keeps coming down towards my waist. It kind of angles in a little bit more, and then right out here would be like the hips. All right, we would have that pelvis. It doesn't need to go out that far. I'm going to do mine a little bit more narrow, right? And women have a little bit wider hips. So I would add in some curves. And then right in here we have two more pivot points. That's where the legs go. Remember, halfway down right here we have the knees. So maybe I want one leg. Let's see. I'm going to have her look like she's walking. So I'm going to have one leg that kind of angles in towards the center. I'm going to do my kneecap. And then, remember, about halfway on this bottom one is the ankle. So I'm going to have that ankle right there. And then I would have my foot. When the foot is pointed towards you, it almost looks more like almost like a triangular shape. Okay, if you wanted to, you could do bumps on the sides on this bottom part for like the calf. And then I'm going to say that this other leg comes back a little bit behind this one, like she's walking towards you. Right, so this one is going back behind. So her back foot just kind of disappears. All right, and then we have our arms, right? This waist, this point right here is where the elbows go. So I would have it come down right in here. Then this part right here is where the wrists are. So I would have the next part of my arm come down. And then the hands. I would probably make the woman's hands a little bit shorter. And you can either, you can just do like a little curve like that. You don't have to get fancy with your hands. Okay. So once you have those proportions, you can start to, put them in different angles and whatnot. So let me do the outline of this real quick. Give me just a moment. I'm going to give her some clothes. Okay, so there's the outline of my woman, right? Without all the lines and the pivot points, where the joints are. I kept a couple lines, like one right here for where the chest is, and then I did a little V right there for, where the legs would start and those kinds of things. So, I kind of mentioned this before, but right in here, if you want to, you have like your collarbone. There's like a little divot right here, and then you can feel it. It goes off to the sides and connects to the top of your shoulder. So if you wanted to add in those lines, you could. Right, it's like a V with two lines on the sides. And then maybe my person is going to have like a V-neck shirt. And I'm going to, let's see, I'm just going to make it a tank top. And I'm going to give her some high-waisted jeans. So shirt's going to come down to there. Right, so we got her tank top on. Could add in like the button and the fly for the pants. Could do pockets with the lines for the stitching. You could have them be pants and have them come down here, or capris. You could have them be shorts. Maybe I'll have them be capris and like folded at the bottom. Right. And then you can give shoes with the feet. This leg disappeared behind that one. But with the feet, kind of angles out towards you. And then I do like a little bit of a V at the bottom. Okay. So you can always just, cap it off, make it a boot or something. Or you could have it like come down kind of like so. To make it a shoe. Right? And then, in the head, we talked about all those proportions. I already added in the ears about halfway down. You can see those little ears. I'll add in some eyebrows. And some eyes. I'm doing it with pen, so it's a little bit harder. And about halfway down that. And halfway down that. And I think I'm gonna give her, so her hairline would be like right up about there. So I think I'm gonna give her some really curly hair. She'll be an African American woman. Beautiful curly hair. We'd have it not just on the top of the head, unless like the sides of her head are shaved. Alright, I'm just doing like little swirls. But if it's a little bit longer, it would come down behind her head as well. I'm going to have it come out a little bit further. And there you go. Alright, so now I have a figure, and it is proportionate. It's proportionate, right? Because I broke it down into heads. Now, if you don't have like a ruler, you could also use your thumb, right? So you could take your thumb. I would find it easiest to do it this way and go across. But say that this is one thumb, so I would make a mark, and then on the bottom of that thumb, make a mark, move your thumb down, and just keep, sorry, it's hard to hold this and do this, and then just keep going, right, and just keep making those marks going down, and you could do it that way as well if you don't have a ruler. All right, so I have taken a lot of classes and have had a lot of practice. It's going to take a while, but I just wanted to give you guys some tools. You know, if you're trying to draw a person, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing the arms long enough or not. I don't know if the legs are long enough. Now you know. You just split it into heads. Or, you know, like the top half of the body is the same as the bottom half of the body. You know, the elbows come to the waist, wrists come down to the pelvis, right, knees, and then got our head, shoulders come down a little further. You know, you can like move the body around to make them look like they're doing different things in different angles. All right, and I'm going to link some photos too that are just kind of like a food for thought to look at, and just practice. It's not going to be perfect, but if you don't start and keep working on it, then you'll never make progress, right? So let me know if you guys have questions. Practice, you know, splitting your figure into 8 pieces and trying to draw a person. And if you're like really into it, getting one of those wooden mannequin figures to look at. They already have the balls for like those pivot points, right? And you can also move it around to like look at it and try and use it as a reference. Super awesome to have. So if you're really into it, maybe, ask Santa or something like that. Okay, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you guys next week.